"Make it quick, human," the Shackled sisters whispered. What I did, instead, shook the galaxy. The first thing I tasted on Kipri 7 was ash. It clung to the inside of my helmet filter, bitter and metallic, riding every breath as the dropship peeled away and left me alone on the burning world. Orbital firestorms crawled along the horizon, turning the shattered city into a jagged silhouette of black glass and twisted towers. Standard Deathworlder insertion. One human where most species would send a platoon. I checked my armor seals, rolled my shoulders to settle the plates, and brought my rifle up. HUD tags blinked in the corner of my vision. 32 hostile life signs clustered in the ruins ahead, plus a cluster of unknowns underground. The Combine liked to hide their toys beneath the bones of conquered worlds. "Sergeant Mason Hale, groundside," I reported, moving to objective. "Copy, Hale," command crackled in my ear. "Primary, dismantle Slaver Hub and recover any intel. Secondary, no witnesses." No witnesses. Easy words from someone orbiting a safe 100 kilometers above the mess. I cut the channel and started forward, boots crunching on vitrified sand. Lightning crawled in the clouds overhead, silent and constant. Kepri had been a contested world once, terraformed halfway before the Combine decided humans had no business existing near their trade lanes. We disagreed. They glassed the cities. We sent Deathworlders. I slipped through the ruins like a shadow, bypassing half-functional sensor pikes, field-stripping the first guard I met before he had time to gasp. Combine enforcers were fast, but they were trained to fight each other, not something that grew up on a planet where the air tried to kill you half the year. One by one, sentries went down. Patrol routes became gaps. Alarms didn't have time to cycle before bullets and blades did the talking. By the time I reached the center of the camp, an old human logistics hub gutted and rebuilt into a slaver depot, the HUD showed 20 hostiles left. My heartbeat never changed pace. The door to the main block blew inward with a shaped charge. I walked through the smoke. They died fast. Plasma bolts hissed past my visor, scoring molten scars along the walls. I moved through them, the way I'd trained on Earth's storm-raked ranges, where visibility dropped to nothing, and the only thing you could trust was muscle memory and stubbornness. 12 enemies fell, then 16, then 20. My HUD flashed primary objective complete, while the last enforcer was still trying to crawl away. Armor melted into his flesh. I put one round through his helmet and watched the icon go dark. That should have been the end, except there was a sound the HUD couldn't mark. Thin, ragged, shivering through the ruined corridors. Someone crying. The sound came from below, down a ramp the Combine had hacked into what used to be a storage bay. Emergency lights flickered along the walls, bathing everything in sickly red. I followed the sobbing. A heavy door blocked the way, thick alloy sealed with a biometric lock. To a Combine engineer, that meant security. To a human raised in the rusted ruins of old Seattle, it meant kick where the metal's weakest. 3 focused strikes with my exobraced boot, and the lock sheared. The door slammed open. The smell hit me first. Coolant, old blood, scorched circuitry. Then the glow. The underground chamber was crowded with cages welded from scavenged plating. In the largest, at the center, 2 figures knelt back to back, shackled to the same anchor point in the floor. Bioluminescent bands circled their wrists, glowing the same cold blue as the control node mounted above them. They were identical, mirror images twisted by exhaustion. Both had skin the color of amethyst under frost, smooth and faintly luminous where the light hit. Long hair, a shade between pink and silver, spilled down their backs in silk sheets. Their ears swept up into sharp points, and their eyes were pure icy cyan, bright even through tears. One of them lifted her head as the door slammed open. Her gaze locked on my armor, on the Terran Vanguard insignia burned into the breastplate, and widened in something beyond fear. The translator chip in my helmet caught her whisper. "Make it quick, human." The other twin flinched but straightened, jaw clenched. "Do not beg, Sarah," she hissed in their language. "He is a Deathworlder. He will not linger. Deathworlder. Always said like a curse. For a heartbeat, every instinct I trained into a weapon hesitated. Command had said no witnesses. I stepped forward anyway. I'm not here for you, I said, amplifier carrying my voice through my helmet. I'm here for the bastards who put you in that cage. Both sisters stared. The one who'd spoken second, taller by maybe half a centimeter, hair braided back from a face built for trouble, bared her teeth. Lies. Your kind kills. It is all you know. You'd be surprised. I knelt by the door lock. The control node mounted above them pulsed in time with their wristbands. Some kind of neural compliance system, if Combine design habits held. Enough current to make disobedience agony, enough to keep them from even trying to run. My suit's tools weren't delicate. They didn't need to be. I jammed a spike into the panel and pulsed a localized EMP. Sparks exploded from the node. The glow in their shackles flickered, then died with a faint whine. Both women gasped, shoulders sagging as if an invisible weight had fallen away. The nearer one, Sarah, if I'd heard right, stared at her wrists like they were strangers. The pain is gone, she whispered. The other glared at me. We will die slower now. That is all you have done. Not really. I took hold of the cage door and twisted. Reinforced servos in my gauntlets whined. Metal screamed. The door tore free of its hinges and crashed aside. The sisters recoiled, chains clinking. I took a deliberate step back, hands open. No weapon, no threat, just a human in scarred armor standing in the mouth of their cell. You're not dying today, I said. Not if I can help it. Silence. Their eyes flicked to each other, then back. Somewhere far overhead, the rumble of distant bombardment rolled across Kepri's broken sky. You would free us? Sarah asked. That's the idea. Her twin's voice was a rasp. Why? I wished I had a poetic answer. Something about justice or honor or the indomitable human spirit. Because you didn't do anything to deserve this, I said instead, and because my world taught me that if you walk past a cage and leave it full, you're the one who belongs in it. Their translator struggled with that for a full second before rendering it. When it did, both women stared like I'd shattered the laws of physics. Stand up, I told them quietly, or stay. Your choice. But if you stay, the next Combine squad that comes through here won't ask whether you want it quick. Choice. For slaves, that word hits like a grenade. After a long, trembling heartbeat, Sarah shifted. The chains at her ankles rattled as she forced herself upright. Her twin followed, jaw tight, eyes never leaving me. Names? I asked. Sarah Velen, the first said softly. Nix Velen, the other added, voice hard enough to cut steel. Mason Hale, I replied. Terran Vanguard, let's get you out of hell. The chains weren't designed to be removed by their wearers. They were designed to remind them of that. I broke them anyway. Each link snapped under exo-driven strain, falling in dull clatters to the floor. Every time one fell, Sarah flinched as if expecting a punishment shock. Nix clenched her jaw and pretended not to. When they were free, they both just stood there, bare feet braced on cold metal, as if the concept of leaving the cage hadn't fully downloaded. I turned my back on them, deliberately, stupidly, trustingly, and walked to the stairwell. Behind me, silence. Then the slightest rustle of bare feet on deck plating. I hid my smile inside the helmet and climbed. The upper levels of the depot were a maze of scorched corridors, slagged consoles, and dead slavers. The auto sprinklers had kicked in when the fires started, leaving everything slick and steaming. Through the cracked hull, ash-filled wind howled. Sarah and Nix followed at a careful distance, eyes darting to every shadow. They wore ragged shifts that might once have been beige. Now they were mostly char and grime, clinging to frames that were all sharp angles and two visible bones. Stay close, I said as we moved. There might be stragglers. More of your kind? Nix asked. More of theirs. I nudged a fallen enforcer with my boot. The sisters flinched back from the corpse. nostrils flaring at the smell of fried flesh. "You killed them." "All," Sarah whispered. "Most. Enough." Nix's gaze slid over the bodies, then back to me. "Why leave us alive when command said no witnesses?" I glanced at her. Her translator lag had dropped. She was picking up standard faster than most officers I knew. "I didn't say they said that," I replied. "You also didn't deny it." Cheeky. I liked her already, which probably meant trouble. Sirens howled faintly somewhere in the ruins, a late, pointless protest from systems that didn't realize their masters were dead. My HUD showed no hostiles within 100 meters, but the unknown cluster beneath the camp had fragmented when I fried the control node. Some slaves had died when the implant surged. Others might have gotten free and bolted. I didn't blame them. "Camp's gone," I reported over comms as we reached the surface. "Slaver infrastructure neutralized. Intel cache secured. 2 survivors extracted. Civilian status unknown." "2?" Command repeated. "Clarify, Sergeant. Enemy combatants?" "Negative. Former captives. Recommending evac." A long, brittle pause. "That was not in your mission profile." "Neither was the camp," I said. "We adapt or we die. That's the Deathworlder way, remember?" Another pause. Then, "Hold position for 4 hours. Dropship ETA adjusted. Do not compromise operational security, Hale." "Copy," I said, and closed the channel before they could argue about what counted as compromising. I turned back to the sisters. They stood at the edge of the ruined courtyard, staring up at the glassy sky. Orbital scars glowed faint orange through the clouds. Sarah's voice was barely audible. "We thought the bombardment was the gods' anger." "Sorry to disappoint," I said. "Just your average xenocidal empire having a tantrum." Nix tore her gaze away from the sky and locked it on me. "And you?" "What are you?" I hesitated, then shrugged. "On a good day, a man doing his job. On a bad one, the story you were told to scare you into obedience." Her lips twitched. Not quite a smile. Not yet. We set up camp in the shell of an old admin block that still had half a roof. I lit a compact thermal unit. Its orange glow flickered against cracked walls and broken windows. Outside, lightning strobed silently, turning the world into a monochrome nightmare. Inside, there was warmth. I dropped my pack, pulled out 3 ration bricks, and tossed 2 toward the sisters. The foil packages bounced off Sarah's chest. She caught one with both hands and stared at it like it might explode. Nix sniffed suspiciously. "What is this?" "Food." "You eat metal?" I snorted. "Tear the foil. Not everything we make is designed to kill something, you know." "We have seen little evidence of that," she muttered, but she did as instructed. The smell of reconstituting protein filled the space, bland but warm. Sarah took one tentative bite, then another, then devoured the rest like she was afraid it would vanish. Nix paced, every movement restless. "They will come," she said. "The Combine. They never abandon assets, not slaves, not outposts." "They'll try," I agreed. "Good news is they'll be expecting a standard Terran squad, maybe a light mech. Not one angry monkey with a gun and 2 newly unshackled problems." Sarah looked up, crumbs on her lips. "Problems?" "Trust me," I said. "Command already thinks you are." She swallowed. Her fingers brushed the dead bands around her wrists. "If we are problems, why not leave us here?" The question was genuine, not self-pitying. That bothered me more. "Because," I said slowly, "my mother would climb out of her grave, hijack the nearest shuttle, and slap me stupid if she heard I walked away from 2 people who needed help." Nix frowned. "Your dam is fierce?" "She raised 3 kids on a planet where the rain can strip paint. Fierce is the polite word." Sarah's eyes softened. Nix's didn't, but her posture eased by a fraction. The thermal unit hummed. Outside, wind screamed across the ruined plaza, carrying the distant thunder of orbital batteries. Capri 7 was dying slowly, one bombardment at a time. "Where are you from?" I asked after a while. "Before this." Sarah's gaze fell. Lyreth Prime. Jewel World, they called it. City trees, floating gardens, sky bridges of glass. Nix's voice went flat. The Combine wanted our biotech. We gave it. They wanted our children as guarantees. They took them. When they wanted soldiers... She trailed off, jaw working. They took you, I finished. She nodded. You're twins, I said. That rare among your people? We are not twins. Nix's eyes flashed. We are a mirrored pair, bound in the womb and bound in mind. When one feels pain, the other knows. They found that efficient. Sarah shivered. They said we made excellent examples. When one disobeyed, they punished the other. I felt something cold settle in my gut. Humans were inventive with cruelty, but the Combine liked to add engineering. You're not examples anymore, I said. Nix hugged her knees, firelight washing blue across her violet skin. What are we then? I stared into the flames. Alive, I decided. For now, that's enough. I didn't sleep. Deathworlder or not, you learn to respect fatigue. It kills slower than bullets, but just as surely. Still, 4 hours on a hostile rock with a probable Combine response force inbound wasn't the time to nap. I set perimeter drones in a rough circle around the admin block, their tiny thrusters kicking up ash. Each one linked to my HUD, overlapping fields of motion and thermal detection. Sarah watched from the doorway, blanket from my emergency kit draped around her shoulders. They look like fireflies, she murmured. Less poetic, I said. More automated shriek machine if someone gets too close. Nix sat on the edge of the broken concrete, feet dangling over the drop, staring into the ruined camp. Flickers of light still burned where storage tanks had ruptured. You are waiting for them, she said. The Combine. Command's dropship won't land if this area isn't secure. If the Combine wants their assets back, they'll send a team to find out why the camp went dark. We hold until friendly eyes show up, or until we're too dead to care. Sarah clutched the blanket tighter. We fight with you? I glanced at her. She'd stopped shaking. That counted. If you want to, I said. If you don't, there's a drainage tunnel on the west side. Leads out into the ravine. You could run. Try your luck. Out there? She nodded toward the ash wasteland. With no food, no shelter, no ship, and the Combine hunting anything that moves? Yeah, I said. That option sucks. Doesn't mean it's not an option, Nix snorted. You offer us death with more flavors than they did, I shrugged. Choice is messy. One of the drones pinged, an edge-of-range blip, gone as fast as it appeared. My spine stiffened. Armor up, I said, rising. We've got company. Sarah went pale. Nix stood, fists clenched. We have no armor, she said. Then stay behind mine. The Combine skimmers came in low, barely more than dark smears against the storm clouds. My HUD caught their thermal signatures as they crested the broken skyline. 3 sleek attack craft, bristling with guns. Down, I barked, shoving Sarah and Nix back under the overhang as the first strafing run lit the courtyard. Plasma carved molten lines in the black glass, sending shards of glowing shrapnel into the air. Heat washed over my armor, alarms flickering amber, then green again as the suit compensated. I rolled out, braced my rifle against a fallen beam, and let the first skimmer cross my sights. Breathe in. Hold. The trigger brake was a tiny click under my finger. The rail slug punched through the skimmer's cockpit with casual vengeance. The craft spiraled out of control, slammed into a half-collapsed bunker, and exploded in a blossom of fire. The second veered hard, banking to avoid the debris. The third accelerated, guns chewing up the plaza where Sarah and Nix had been seconds before. I dropped a shoulder, sprinted across open ground. Deathworlders do stupid exposure differently. Slid behind a chunk of ferrocrete as the world turned into a storm of white-hot plasma. Stay down! I yelled over the roar. Nix's voice answered, furious. We are not glass! Then don't shatter! She swore in Lirathi. I didn't catch every word, but the tone was universal. The second skimmer looped around, trying to get a clean line. I popped a grenade, cooked it for 2 seconds, and lobbed it just ahead of its turn. The explosion caught its underside. Shields flared, failed. The craft slammed into a tower and stuck there, smoking. The third pilot learned from his friend's mistakes. He climbed, staying just outside my rifle's optimal range, and switched to suppression. Plasma hammered the admin block, shaking it to its foundations. Dust cascaded from the ceiling. Sarah screamed. I grit my teeth. Fine. You want to dance at range? Let's dance. I slung the rifle, pulled my secondary, compact rail pistol, less power, more agility. Then I sprinted for the exposed edge of the roof. Mason! Sarah cried. Staying put is how you die! I shouted back. The edge of the roof crumbled under my boots. For one heartbeat, I was in open air, storm wind tearing at my armor, lightning flaring across the sky. The skimmer banked toward me, cannons tracking. Its pilot had half a second to process the suicidal monkey jumping straight at him. Half a second was all I needed. I fired 3 times. First shot, shield projector. Second shot, canopy joint. Third shot, pilot's helmet. The skimmer lurched sideways. I hit its hull, grabbed a maintenance fin, and let momentum swing me like a pendulum. When it smashed into the side of a tower, I kicked off, using the impact as a launch. Gravity did the rest. I hit the courtyard hard enough to jar my teeth, armor sparking. Pain flared in my ribs, but everything still moved when I told it to. Good enough. The skimmer crumpled into a burning heap a dozen meters away. Silence fell, broken only by the crackle of flames and the whir of my drones recalibrating. I pushed myself to my feet, leaning on my rifle. Sarah and Nix emerged from cover slowly, eyes wide. Ash clung to their hair and lashes, turning them into haunted statues lit by firelight. You jumped, Sarah whispered. Seemed polite, I said, trying to breathe around the ache. He came all this way. Nix stared at the wrecked ships. You are mad. Deathworlder, I corrected. Mad comes free with the passport. The drones pinged again. Smaller signatures this time, armor-plated and on foot. Skimmer Squad was the appetizer, I said. Ground teams inbound, 12 biosigns, heavy. They'll try to punch through fast before Orbital gets curious. Sarah swallowed. We cannot outrun them. No, I agreed. We fight. Nix squared her shoulders. Fear still flickered behind her eyes, but something else was there now, too. Anger honed into a blade. Then give us weapons. Nix, Sarah started. We are done letting others decide if we live or die, Nix snapped, then looked at me. Deathworlder, Mason, you freed us. Now teach us how not to break. I studied them both. They were exhausted, half-starved, shaking, but their hands didn't clench around invisible chains anymore. They clenched around possibility. I tossed Nix my sidearm. She caught it awkwardly, nearly dropping it. Sight's here, I said, stepping close enough to adjust her grip. Recoil's light, but it'll still surprise. Keep your arms straight, knees bent. Breathe with the shot, not against it. Her skin was cool under my gauntlet. She shivered at the contact, then steadied. Sarah hovered at her shoulder. I have never killed anyone, she whispered. Good, I said. Hold on to that. Kill as few as you can. But when it's them or you, choose you. Her throat bobbed as she swallowed. Is that what your people teach their children? I thought of my mother again, showing me how to shoot cans off a fence while the sky boiled with toxic storms. Pretty much, I said. Welcome to the club. The Combine squad came through the north breach, boots crunching on glass, visors gleaming. They moved in disciplined spread, overlapping fields of fire, like they drilled this scenario 100 times. They had. The problem was they drilled it against soldiers who played by Combine rules. I didn't. Let them come to the first marker, I murmured, flattening myself behind the rubble. Nix lay prone beside me, pistol braced on a chunk of broken wall. Sarah knelt farther back, clutching a scavenged rifle like a lifeline. You marked the ground? Nix asked. More like the air, I said. Watch. The lead trooper stepped into the open space between 2 shattered towers. My drone network tagged him green, then red. I double-tapped the trigger on my wrist console. 3 micromines, no bigger than my thumb, detonated in a pattern I'd pre-plotted. The air rippled with concussive force. The lead trooper's shields flickered, failed. His armor went from glossy black to bloomed scrap. "Now!" I barked. Nyx squeezed the trigger. Her first shot went wide. The second hit the half-broken shield projector strapped to the trooper's chest. The third caught him just above the visor. He went down like a puppet with cut strings. Nyx froze, pistol smoking. Sarah gasped. "Breathe," I said quietly. "There's more." There were always more. The remaining 11 spread, some dropping to one knee, others sprinting for cover. Plasma bolts turned my previous position into slag. I'd moved 3 heartbeats earlier. Deathworlders learn early. Assume everything wants you dead. You'll be right more often than not. I flanked left, using the gnarled skeleton of a comms tower as cover. Sarah fired from the rear, shots wild at first, then tighter as she forced herself to track rather than flinch. One trooper went down, then another. They weren't expecting resistance from the slaves. They certainly weren't expecting those slaves to fight like they'd been watching me. Good. I popped up, dropped 2 with quick shots to the joints where Combine armor was weakest, then ducked again as a hail of plasma chewed the wall overhead. A scream cut through the roar. High, raw, unmistakably Lyrathi. "Sarah!" Nyx cried. I risked a glance. Sarah lay sprawled behind a broken pillar, rifle knocked from her hands. A plasma bolt had grazed her shoulder, leaving a smoking, blackened line across violet skin. She wasn't dead. Yet. The trooper who'd tagged her advanced, blade sliding from his gauntlet. Combine doctrine. If a slave raised a weapon, you made an example. Nyx moved before I did. She broke cover, sprinting across open ground with a sound somewhere between a snarl and a sob. The pistol bucked in her hands as she fired again and again, shots wide, then closer, then... The trooper jerked as a round took him in the throat joint. He fell at her feet, armor hissing. Nyx stood over him, chest heaving, pistol trembling. I covered the rest, dropping 3 more troopers while they were still recalibrating to the unexpected ferocity of their asset. The last 2 broke and ran. Bad call. I tagged them with my rifle before they made it 10 meters. Silence crashed down, broken only by Sarah's ragged breathing. The battlefield always has a smell. Blood, burned synth, fear. This one had something else. The sharp tang of ozone around Nyx as she stood over the dead trooper, shoulders rigid. Slowly, very slowly, she lowered the pistol. Sarah groaned as I knelt by her. The wound on her shoulder looked ugly, but my suit diagnostic said it was mostly superficial. "Hold still," I said. "This'll sting." "What won't on this world?" she muttered, but she didn't pull away. I sprayed medfoam into the burn. It hissed as it cooled, forming a protective barrier. Sarah hissed too, teeth clenched. Nyx dropped to her knees beside us. "Sarah, You moved," Sarah said, voice wavering. "You never run toward trouble." Nyx laughed, a short, cracked sound. "Apparently Deathworlders are contagious." Her eyes met mine over Sarah's shoulder. There was something new there, not trust yet, not exactly, but the first fragile scaffolding of it. "You did well," I said. "I killed him." "You stopped him from killing your sister," I corrected. "There's a difference." "Is there?" she whispered. "Yeah," I said. "One keeps you alive long enough to figure out what living's for." She looked away, jaw tight. Sarah's fingers found Nyx's and squeezed. Their bioluminescent bracelets, dead now, dark metal dull against their skin, clicked softly as they moved. Without power, they were just ugly jewelry. "Will they send more?" Sarah asked. "Probably," I said, "but not today. We just wiped out their response squad and 3 skimmers. They'll need time to panic about what that means." "And what does it mean?" Nyx asked. I stood, scanning the horizon. "It means," I said quietly, "that somewhere in a Combine briefing room, someone just wrote the words, 'Deathworlder asset compromised,' and started having nightmares." The dropship came 2 hours late, because Command liked to make a point. By then, the wind had shifted, carrying the smell of distant rain instead of close-by fire. Ash swirled around us in slow eddies as we stood in the courtyard, surrounded by wreckage. Sarah and Nix huddled near my side, wrapped in blankets that made them look even smaller. They'd both refused to go back underground. Can't blame them. "Hail," Command crackled. "Dropship Kilo 3 approaching your position. Transponder lock acquired. Report status." 3 survivors, 1 wounded miner, I said, eyes on the sky. "Hostile camp destroyed. Secondary response neutralized. Local space is quiet, for now." "Copy. Any complications?" I glanced at the sisters. "Define complication, sir." A sigh. "We'll discuss it on Alpha 9. Stand by for pickup." The dropship broke through the cloud cover in a roar of turbines, engines glowing hot. It circled once, scanning, then came in low, kicking up a cyclone of ash and loose debris. Sarah shrank back. Nix squinted into the blast, one hand gripping my arm. "It is so loud!" she shouted. "Good!" I yelled back. "Means it's ours!" The ramp lowered with a shriek of hydraulics. 2 Terran Marines in gray armor appeared at the top, rifles leveled. The one on the left raised a hand. "Sergeant Hale! Bring your prisoners forward!" Sarah flinched at the word. "They're not prisoners," I snapped, stepping in front of the sisters. "They're evacuees." The Marine hesitated. "Sir, orders were clear." "Yeah, and the orders also said the slaver camp needed to disappear," I cut in. "Guess what? It did. These 2 helped." Nick stiffened behind me. The Marine traded a glance with his partner, then lowered his rifle a fraction. "Understood, Sergeant. Med team standing by." We walked up the ramp together. To the rest of the squad, I must have looked ridiculous. 1 scorched Deathworlder in battered armor, flanked by 2 alien women with glowing eyes and ragged clothes, trailing ash and stubbornness. Some of them stared. One muttered something about pets. I made a mental note of his badge number for later. Sarah's hand brushed mine as the ramp closed. It was a small, unconscious gesture, like a child reaching for balance. I didn't pull away. The dropship lifted, engines roaring, Kepri 7's broken surface falling away beneath us. Through the viewport, fires still smoldered in the distance. "You're leaving your world," I said quietly. Sarah pressed her forehead to the glass. "It was never ours." Nix watched the battlefield recede, jaw clenched. "What happens now?" she asked without looking at me. I considered the correct answer. Decontamination, quarantine, interrogation, political wrangling about what to do with enemy aliens. Instead, I told the truth. "Now," I said, "we find out whether my people are worth the risk I just took." Orbital Station Alpha 9 hung above Kepri 7 like a steel halo, its docking bays glowing against the dark. As we approached, traffic patterns shifted, giving the dropship priority. "Must have scared them with your casualty report," the pilot muttered over internal comms. "We don't usually get the express lane." "Perks of being a disaster," I said. Sarah and Nix clung to the handrails as artificial gravity adjusted, their eyes wide. Space, for them, had always meant cargo holds and cold sleep crates, not open views and controlled descent. The dropship slid into the bay with a soft thud. Docking clamps latched on. Atmosphere flooded in with a hiss. The ramp lowered. Cold, clean station air rushed over us, recycled, sterile, a revelation after Kepri's scorched breath. Technicians and medics stood ready. Behind them, security personnel in heavier armor eyed the sisters like they were radioactive. Commander Idara Shu waited at the base of the ramp, hands behind her back, expression carved from polished stone. "Hale," she said. "Report." "Camp neutralized, ma'am," I replied, saluting. "Slaver infrastructure destroyed. Intel cores recovered." I gestured to the data canister clipped to my belt. "Also brought you 2 former prisoners. Lerathi, bonded pair. Used as test subjects and slave labor." Idara's gaze flicked to Sarah and Nix, taking in every detail in a heartbeat. The scars, the dead bracelets, the way they hovered half behind me. "And you decided, she said slowly, to ignore the directive regarding witnesses. No, ma'am, I said. I decided the directive didn't apply to people we might save. A whisper ran through the onlookers. Idara's jaw tightened. For a second, I thought she'd rip my rank patch off and toss me in the brig. Then her shoulders eased a fraction. Med team, she snapped. Triage and quarantine protocols. No restraints unless they pose an active threat. That clear? Yes, Commander, the lead medic said, already stepping forward with a scanner. Sarah flinched. Nyx planted herself between her sister and the approaching medic, eyes blazing. We will not wear chains again, she said, voice low but carrying. You won't, I said quickly. They just want to make sure you're not carrying anything that'll eat through the hull. Nyx's glare slid to me. Viruses, parasites, tracking tags. I tapped my helmet. We don't take chances either. Sarah exhaled shakily. We will submit to this scan. The medic ran the device over them, its soft hum the only sound. The screen showed a cascade of data. My HUD translated in a sidebar. No foreign pathogens, elevated stress hormones, malnutrition, and implant fragments at the base of the skull, the medic said. Non-functional, but they'll need surgery to prevent scarring. Sarah went rigid. Nyx's hand flew to the back of her neck. Later, I said gently. One thing at a time. Idara watched all of it. Sergeant, she said finally, voice quieter. Walk with me. Uh-oh. Her office overlooked the planet, a luxury reserved for people who moved pieces instead of bleeding on them. Fragments of Kepri glowed faintly where bombardments still smoldered. From up here, the camp we'd flattened was just another scar. Idara stood with her hands behind her back, gaze fixed on the view. You disobeyed a direct parameter. Technically, ma'am, She lifted one hand. Don't insult me with legalese, Hale. I shut up. She let the silence stretch until my ribs ached more from tension than from injury. You're a Deathworlder, she said at last. If I tell you to crack a mountain, you ask whether with your hands or your head. If I tell you there can be no witnesses, you deliver vacuum in a 5-kilometer radius. That's why Command keeps sending you into places we'd rather burn than land on. I'm aware, I said, and yet you brought me 2 enemy aliens, fully aware that doing so would ignite 6 political fires, compromise Intel's security model, and give the Combine a talking point about human softness. Her eyes met mine. They were tired. Why? I thought about giving her the same answer I'd given Nyx. Because it was right. Because I couldn't do otherwise and still look in a mirror. In the end, I told her something scarier. Because, I said, if we fight this war the way the Combine does, it doesn't matter who wins. The galaxy gets monsters either way. I would prefer ours still recognize themselves. Her mouth quirked. Not quite a smile. Philosophy from a man who once punched a sandworm to death. It started it, I said automatically. Idara sighed, turning back to the window. Intel has been screaming for a live Lirathi subject for months. Their biotech, their neural linkages, that twin bond of theirs. It's all a black box we've only ever seen from the wrong end of a weapon. She glanced at me over her shoulder. You didn't just bring me a moral quandary, Hale. You brought me an opportunity. Wasn't thinking that far ahead, I admitted. I know, she said dryly. That's what worries me. She moved to her desk, tapped a few commands into the console. They'll be housed in a secure civilian ward for now, monitored but not restrained. You will be their primary liaison. I blinked. Ma'am, with respect, I'm a soldier, not a therapist. You're the only human on this station they don't actively flinch away from, she said, and you're the idiot who decided to tie your conscience to theirs. That makes them your responsibility, until I figure out how to sell this to Command without getting both of us spaced. I opened my mouth to argue, then closed it. Understood, ma'am. One more thing, she added, as I turned to go. The Combine will not ignore this. You embarrassed them planetside. You stole their toy. You killed their retrieval squad. Her gaze hardened. Next time they come, They won't send skimmers? I thought of the way Nix had stood over that fallen trooper, of Sarah's fingers brushing mine on the dropship ramp. Then, we'd better be ready, I said. The civilian ward was quieter than the rest of Alpha 9, its walls painted in softer colors, lighting tuned to mimic some approximation of planetary diurnal cycles. Someone had decided that wounded minds healed better when the ceiling didn't look like a bulkhead. Sarah and Nix shared a room with a wide viewport. When I stepped inside, they were both standing as far from it as possible. "You can come closer," I said. "The glass is reinforced. Station hull's behind it." Nix folded her arms. "We have seen space only from the inside of cages. Forgive us for not rushing to embrace it." "That's fair." Sarah was the first to approach the view, cautiously, like it might bite. Her fingers brushed the transparent composite, leaving faint smudges. Below, Kepri 7 turned slowly, a wounded marble wrapped in storm bands. "It is beautiful," she whispered. "Ugly," Nix muttered. "Yes," Sarah said softly. "Both." I leaned against the wall, helmet clipped to my belt. Without it, I was just a man in his 30s with hair that couldn't decide whether it was brown or gray, and a face more scar tissue than smooth. Nix studied that face openly. "You are less frightening without the mask," she said. "Don't tell the recruitment department," I said. "They like the whole walking nightmare aesthetic." Sarah turned from the window. "Idara Shu spoke with us," she said carefully, pronunciation crisp. "She says we are guests." "That's one word for it," I said. "Another is walking classified file." Nix's eyes narrowed. "So we are still assets." "Your people," I said, "who happen to be strategically interesting. Those two things don't cancel each other out." They exchanged a look. Twins, mirror pair, whatever, communicate a lot without speaking. "What do you want from us, Mason?" Sarah asked. The way she said my name tugged something in my chest I wasn't ready to examine. "For now," I said, "I want you to eat 3 times a day, sleep somewhere without shackles, and remember that no one here is allowed to hurt you without going through me first." Nix snorted. "That is a threat?" "That is a promise." Her gaze lingered on mine for a long heartbeat. "Very well," she said. "We will try." "Good," I said. "I'll be back tomorrow. If you need anything, tell the med staff. They're under strict orders not to drug you without consent." Sarah frowned. "They need orders for that?" I grimaced. "Humans are still learning, too." Days blurred into something almost like routine. I split my time between debriefs, physical therapy for the cracked ribs, and hours in the civilian ward. At first, my visits were purely utilitarian, translating station protocols, explaining why the auto doors hissed and the showers worked without someone shouting at them. But patterns have a way of growing roots. Sarah took to the station faster. She asked endless questions about everything: why the stars looked different from this angle, how artificial gravity worked, what coffee was, and whether it was supposed to taste like burnt soil. Nix watched more than she asked. She spent hours in the training sims, replaying tactical feeds from our fight on Kipri, dissecting every movement. When she wasn't doing that, she hovered near her sister, as if expecting someone to snatch Sarah away the second she looked elsewhere. One evening, I walked into their room to find Nix shadowboxing an invisible enemy, bare feet silent on the deck. Her movements were sharp but unrefined. "You're dropping your left," I said. She whirled, teeth bared, then forced herself to relax when she recognized me. "I heard you breathe," she said accusingly. "Deathworld lungs," I replied. "Hard to miss." She rolled her eyes, but there was the ghost of a smile there. "These walls," she said, "they do not vibrate like the camps. No generators, no screams. It is loud in my head without the noise." "Yeah," I said quietly. "Silence can be a bastard." She tilted her head. "You know this?" "Grew up in a crater city," I said. "When the seasonal storms hit, you couldn't hear yourself think. First time I went off-world, the quiet made my skin crawl." "And now?" Now I make my own noise. She snorted. Come on, I said, jerking my chin toward the corridor. We're going to the range. Her eyes lit. We are allowed? I cleared it with Idara. She grumbled a lot. That's officer for yes. The training deck's weapon range smelled like lubricant and ozone. Home, in other words. Nyx took to firearms like they were an extension of her hands. Her twin bond reflexes meant she anticipated motion in ways most recruits couldn't. It was like she heard enemies thinking about moving before they did. Sarah joined us reluctantly at first, flinching at the crack of each simulation round. But Nyx coaxed her in, and I adjusted the program's audio down until the recoil was a firm shove instead of a thunderclap. You don't have to do this, I told Sarah as she lined up another shot. I know, she said. That is why I want to. Her next round punched cleanly through the holographic target's center mass. Nyx whooped. See? Deathworlder blood by association. I'm not sure that's how genetics works, I said. It is how stubbornness works, Nyx shot back. I couldn't argue. Between drills, they peppered me with questions. About my home, my family, why humans kept fighting when every war left us with fewer teeth and more scars. Because we're bad at giving up, I said once, wiping sweat from my brow. Because Earth never gave us the option. You grow up on a planet that tries to kill you every time the climate hiccups. You learn to keep moving, or you're fertilizer. Sarah frowned thoughtfully. Your world forged you. It mauled us, I said. Forging implies intent. Earth doesn't care whether we live or die. That's where the stubbornness comes from. We care enough for both of us. Nyx leaned on the range divider, watching me. You talk about your world like a cruel parent. Some parents are worth forgiving, I said. Some aren't. We're still deciding which Earth is. Do you miss it? Sarah asked. Every day, I said, and not at all. They exchanged a glance that said they knew exactly what that felt like. The whispers on Alpha 9 grew louder. Some crew called Sarah and Nyx Hale's ghosts. Others, less kindly, called them pets or projects. A few refused to be in the same room with them, muttering about Combine spies and sleeper agents. Humans. Put them in a tin can and they'll either learn to cooperate or invent new ways to hate each other. Sometimes both. One evening, I found a slur scrawled on the corridor wall outside the civilian ward. Alien glyphs inverted into something obscene. Nyx stood in front of it, fists clenched so tight her knuckles were nearly white. Who? She demanded when she saw me. Doesn't matter, I said, though I'd already pinged the security log. Cameras never slept. It'll be cleaned. They'll be disciplined. They insulted us in our own language, she hissed. They studied the words just to twist them. That's what fear does, I said. It studies. It sharpens itself. It doesn't like what doesn't fit. Sarah stepped into the hall, eyes wide as she took in the graffiti. She read it silently, lips moving, then shook her head. This is not what Earth taught you, she said to me. No, I said. This is what war taught us. We're still unlearning it. Nyx's shoulders slumped. We should have stayed hidden, she muttered. You risked yourself for nothing. I stepped closer, catching her gaze. I would do it again, I said. Every time. Their fear is not your fault. Their ignorance is not your responsibility. And if they act on it, she asked, voice low. Then they answer to me, I said simply. Sarah studied my face for a long moment, then did something that took me entirely by surprise. She reached up and cupped my jaw in her hand. Her touch was light, careful, as if she expected me to flinch. I didn't. You carry more weight than your armor, she said softly. Let us help. You already are, I said. You just haven't realized it yet. The incident accelerated something I'd half expected and half dreaded. Idara called us into a briefing room. A small one, no windows, just a table, a hollow projector, and the weight of too many eyes. She brought up a display of Combine fleet movements. Red icons swarmed across the map like angry insects. They're pissed, she said. Intel confirms Capri 7's slaver hub was part of a wider network. When you broke it, Hale, you didn't just free 2 people. You removed a keystone. Nix's eyes narrowed. Their supply of living weapons. Exactly, Idara said. We've intercepted chatter indicating they're accelerating their asset reclamation initiative. Sarah shuddered. That means more raids, more camps. Idara nodded. Which is where you come in. She looked at Sarah and Nix, not at me. We can fight the Combine ship to ship, world to world. We have been for years. It slows them. It doesn't stop them. What we haven't had is someone who understands how they think about their assets from the inside. Nix's jaw tightened. You want us to be guides. We want you to help us break their machine, Idara said. You know their procedures, their schedules, the way their overseers react when things go off script. With your insight and our firepower, we could hit more camps like Capri, free more people, hurt them where it matters. Sarah's gaze flicked to me. This is what you fight for, she said quietly. Freedom. Among other things, I said. Mostly, I fight so the kids back home can grow up without having to learn how to field strip a rifle before they learn to read. Nick studied the shifting red icons. If we agree, she said slowly, we become targets, more than we already are. Idara's voice softened. You already are. The difference is whether you want to run forever or stand and make them regret ever touching your world. Silence. Sarah reached for her sister's hand, their fingers intertwined, matching bracelets clicking. We vowed, Sarah said, that if we ever escaped, we would never be tools again. Nick squeezed her hand. We will not, she said. We will be weapons we choose to be. Her eyes met mine. If we do this, she said, we do it with you. I swallowed. Figured you'd say that, I managed. Good thing I already requested you as part of my deployment unit. Idara raised an eyebrow. You did? Yesterday, I said. Call it Deathworlder intuition. For the first time since I'd met her, Nix smiled without reservation. It seems madness is contagious as well. Our next deployment wasn't a planet. It was a ship. The Combine liked to move their high-value assets through a series of hidden transit barges, hulking vessels with no official registry, stripped of identifying marks, crawling along obscure trade lanes. Thanks to Sarah and Nix, we knew where one would be and when. The boarding plan was simple, in the way knives are simple. Get in, cut deep, get out before the body realizes what happened. We rode a stealth shuttle in, hugging the barge's thermal blind spot. Once we were close enough, we used mag clamps to latch on and burn through the hull with a tunnel cutter. Last chance to back out, I told the sisters, as the cutter's circular glow widened. Nick snorted. Do Deathworlders always talk this much before danger? Only when we're trying to impress someone, I said. Sarah's cheeks flushed a deeper shade of violet. Then you are doing an adequate job. Before I could decide whether my heart remembered how to skip a beat, the cutter finished its circle. The hull plug fell inward. We dropped into hell. Inside, the barge felt like every Combine facility I'd ever seen. Low ceilings, harsh lighting, walls humming with distant machinery, but the air here was thicker, full of recycled breath and fear. Rows of stasis pods lined the walls, each one containing a sleeping form. Different species, different ages, all with the same haunted slackness to their faces. Sarah's hands trembled. They keep them dormant between camps, she whispered. Less chance of rebellion. Nix's jaw clenched. We were awake. They liked hearing us scream. I laid a hand on her shoulder. Not today. Our squad moved forward, quiet and lethal. Nix guided us through the maze, avoiding patrol routes she knew by muscle memory. Sarah hacked into the central control system, her fingers flying over alien glyphs with a fluency our techs had spent months failing to mimic. Stasis cycles unlocked, she said, but we cannot wake all at once. Power surge will trigger alarms. Then we stagger it, I said. sections at a time. Prioritize children and those closest to the access points. Nix nodded. They will be disoriented when they wake. We will need to shepherd them. Good thing we brought a Deathworlder shepherd, I said. The first pods hissed open. Eyes blinked in confusion. Voices rose in fear. Sarah murmured in half a dozen languages, soothing, explaining as best she could. Nix moved like a blade, cutting control tethers, ushering people toward the breach. I covered the corridors. When the alarm finally did go off, it was almost a relief. The silence breaking felt like a bone finally snapping back into place. Combine enforcers poured out of side passages, weapons hot. They expected unarmed slaves. They got me, and the Velen sisters. We fought together like we'd been doing it for years. Nix called warnings from angles I couldn't see, feeling the tremors of intent through the floor, through the air, through whatever strange bond she and her sister shared. Sarah's aim was steady, as she picked off overseers trying to reach the emergency kill switches. The freed captives watched the three of us stand between them and their nightmares, and did something the Combine had never let them do. They pushed back. By the time we reached the shuttle again, the barge was burning from the inside out. Hundreds of stasis pods hung empty behind us. As the hatch sealed, Sarah sagged into a seat, shaking. Nix dropped beside her, equally spent. "You all right?" I asked. Sarah laughed, half-sob. "We are more than all right." Nix leaned her head back, eyes closing. "This," she said, "is what freedom feels like." "Tired and bruised?" I asked. "Loud," she said, "and worth it." The missions blurred after that. Camps burned. Barges cracked open. Word spread through the underground channels of the galaxy. Somewhere out there, a Terran Deathworlder and 2 Lirathi sisters were tearing holes in the Combine's chains. We earned nicknames, some dramatic, some obscene. When a Slaver whispered, "the Triad in fear," I knew we were doing something right. But between battles, between briefings and debriefings, and the endless logistics of rebellion, real life crept in. We learned each other's small habits. That Sarah hummed under her breath when she was focused, the melody always slightly different, but somehow familiar. That Nix pretended not to care about the station's hydroponic gardens, then spent hours there when she thought no one was looking, fingers brushing leaves like they were holy relics. They learned that I could fall asleep anywhere, any time, as long as there was a solid wall at my back and a clear line of fire. They also learned that sometimes, when a certain old song filtered through the station speakers, a relic from Earth's pre-jump age, I had to step out of the room and breathe until the ghost of my brother's laughter stopped echoing. They never asked. They didn't have to. Pain recognizes pain. One night, after a particularly ugly op, we ended up back in their quarters instead of the mess. Too many eyes in the mess. Too many whispers. Sarah sat cross-legged on the floor, nursing a sprained wrist. Nix paced. "You're going to wear a groove through the deck," I said. "Let it," she snapped. "They almost recaptured those children, Mason." "Almost," I said. "Key word. They didn't." Sarah held out her hand to Nix. "Come sit. You're making the air anxious." Nix sighed but obeyed, dropping down beside her sister. Their shoulders touched, mirrored profiles silhouetted against the starlight. "Do you ever regret it?" Sarah asked suddenly. "Regret what?" I said. "Freeing us." Nix stiffened. "Sarah, no," I said. The answer surprised me with how quickly it came. "I regret not getting there sooner," I added. "I regret every camp we don't know about yet. Every person still down there wondering if anyone cares whether they live or die. But you? No. You're the part I don't regret." Sarah's eyes shone. "We are dangerous." "So am I," said. "Difference is I got a choice in how." Nix studied me, something raw and bright in her gaze. "And what do you choose now, Deathworlder?" I swallowed. In the beginning, the line between us had been simple. Rescuer and rescued. Then allies. Then comrades. The war had a way of shoving people into trenches together until labels blurred. Now, sitting here with 2 women who had become the axis around which my days turned, I realized we'd crossed another line without. noticing. "I choose," I said slowly, "to keep walking into hell as long as you're walking out with me." Sarah's breath hitched. Nix's lips curved, not a smirk this time, but a small, genuine smile. "Then we choose the same," she said, quietly. Her hand found mine. Sarah's found my other. 3 sets of fingers, calloused and scarred, laced together. Outside, the stars kept burning, indifferent and endless. Inside, for the first time in a very long time, I felt something like peace. The Combine didn't stop coming. Empires rarely do until someone rips their teeth out. But the war changed flavor. Every liberated camp brought us new allies, new stories, new reminders that the galaxy was bigger than Deathworld myths and combined propaganda. We weren't just saving lives anymore. We were building something. A coalition of the stubborn, the furious, the ones who'd looked death in the eye and decided to spit instead of bow. At the center of it, somehow, was a human from a murderous little blue planet and 2 mirrored sisters whose eyes still glowed when they laughed. The rumors called me the Deathworlder, like it was a title, carved in stone. Sarah and Nix called me Mason. I liked their version better. One quiet cycle, rare between deployments, we found ourselves back on Alpha 9's observation deck. The graffiti was gone. The whispers had shifted. Now, when we walked past, people nodded. Some even smiled. Respect is a slower contagion than fear, but it sticks deeper. We stood at the window, watching a convoy of refugee ships depart. Some carried former slaves, others carried supplies, med teams, and hope to worlds that had forgotten what that felt like. "Do you ever think about what comes after?" Sarah asked, resting her head lightly on my shoulder. "After what?" I said. "The war?" Nix snorted softly. "Deathworlders do not think about after. They barely think about next." "That hurts because it's true," I said. Sarah's fingers traced idle patterns on the back of my hand. "If the Combine falls," she said, "if our people are free, what will you do?" I stared at the spinning arc of Capri 7 below, scarred but slowly healing. Terraforming satellites glittered like fireflies as they adjusted orbit. "Go home, maybe," I said. "See if Earth still feels like the same bastard it was when I left." "And if it does?" Nix asked. "Then I keep moving," I said. "The galaxy's big. Plenty of trouble to get into. Plenty of people to annoy with my terrible coffee." Sarah laughed, the sound warm against my chest. "And us?" she asked. "Where do you see us?" I turned to look at them. 2 faces, identical in bone structure, utterly distinct in expression. Sarah's open and luminous. Nix's sharp and wary, but softer now around the eyes. "Wherever you want to be," I said. "You're not my assets. You're not my responsibility. You're my—" The word caught. Family felt too small. Lovers felt too narrow. Comrades felt too cold. Nix rescued me. "Choice," she said quietly. "We are your choice, as you are ours." I blew out a breath. "Yeah," I said. "That." Sarah smiled, leaning up to press a brief, careful kiss to my cheek. Nix followed, less careful, more claiming. Heat flushed up my neck. "Deathworlder," Nix murmured. "You face gunships without blinking, yet color like a child when 2 aliens touch you." "Guilty," I said. "Turns out courage is directional." Sarah's laughter rang against the glass. Stories spread faster than FTL. By the time the Combine realized how much damage we'd done, the legend had already outrun us. A Deathworlder who spared slaves instead of killing them. Sisters who once begged for a quick death now leading charges against their former masters. The version told in back-alley cantinas and encrypted comm rooms tended to skip the parts where we were tired, or afraid, or made mistakes. It focused on the jumps from skimmers, the impossible odds, the blaze of plasma, and the clever quips. I'd be lying if I said I didn't enjoy some of it. But late, when the station lights dimmed and the hum of the engines was the only sound, I remembered the bunker on Kepri, the way Sarah's voice had broken when she whispered, "Make it quick, human." That was the part of the story that mattered, not the gunfights, not the explosions. Not even the romance that had grown out of shared blood and stubbornness. The moment that changed everything was the one where I looked at two terrified, chained sisters and decided the mission parameters could go to hell. Humans are good at war. It's an ugly truth we've had to swallow again and again. But we're capable of something the Combine never understood. We're good at mercy, too. Mercy takes more effort, more risk. It requires you to imagine a future where the person in front of you isn't a threat, or a tool, or a number, but something messier and harder to control. Free. That's what scared the Combine most. Not my aim, not my rugged Deathworlder constitution. Not even Sarah and Nyx's mirrored bond turned against them. What scared them was that one human's choice had multiplied. Every camp we freed, every ship we cracked, every whispered story about the Deathworlder and the sisters who wouldn't stay broken, it all traced back to that first refusal to make it quick. So when people ask me now, on rare quiet days, when the war feels far away, whether I regret that choice, I tell them the same thing I told Sarah and Nyx. No, I say, I regret we didn't start sooner. Then I look at the two women standing beside me, once slaves, now warriors, lovers, and something larger than any label. And I remember the way their hands felt when they first trusted me enough to take mine. We're not done, Nyx will say, watching some new threat blink onto the star maps. Not even close, Sarah will add, eyes bright with that fierce, fragile hope that started it all. And me? I'll pick up my rifle, check the charge, roll my shoulders. Let's go shake the galaxy, I'll say, because that's what Deathworlders do when the universe tells us to make it quick. We take our time. We make it count. The end. Stay with this story. Universe. More battles, more heart, and more chaos are coming. Subscribe and don't miss the next chapter of their rebellion.